to record to this computer, and I'm beginning recording right now. Hey, I want to welcome everyone today. This afternoon, we're visiting with Dan Nelson, who has embarked upon a very unique and very intriguing vision and mission over this next year here. Without further ado, let me introduce Dan and welcome you to this mini presentation to the Master Gardener Foundation of Grays Harbor and Pacific Counties, many of whom are your fans and follow you on your blog and are fascinated by the not only the photographs, of course, that we're sharing here now, but also, of course, your commentary, your narrative that comes along with them. So please share.
Well, for one thing, it's probably going to take well over a year because at one a day, 10,000 puts me up to another 26 years or so from now. So this is a very long-term project here, but it's it's a culmination of a lot of different things. I've been really into getting out and looking for cool stuff for quite a while now, and but I had kind of gotten, I don't know, bored is probably the wrong word, but just satisfied with the idea of just, how many moths can I find this year? How many wildflowers can I find today? And I wanted to do something with all that knowledge that I was gaining. And the idea of doing a 10,000 things blog has been rattling around for the last year and a half, 2 years. And finally last summer, I went ahead and just checked into it deeply and started it up. It turned out not to hardly cost anything on my end, and it's something that it's a very fascinating pursuit for me too.
So Dan, I guess my first question, of course, is why 10,000? Why not 1,000 or 50,000 or what? Why the number?
Oh, there's that Chinese thing about the 10,000 things. It means to denote the whole world, and it's just a nice round number. There's also that Greek word myriad, which also means 10,000, and it's just a big enough number to show people that there is a phenomenal amount of diversity, and yet a small enough number to where, as long as I don't die soon, it's attainable.
Share with us a little bit about your equipment, because again, the quality of the photographs we're viewing now are just spectacular.
Well, for most of my lichen photographs, I have been using an Olympus TG5 camera. It's got focus stacking built right into it, and it's got very close focusing features. I can get within a centimeter of something, and it'll still focus on it. I use that also, and I don't know if you can see, I got some microscopes and stuff over here. I use that through the ocular of the microscopes for some of the microscope pictures that you'll see on here. I just recently bought a TG6 camera, because from going around in my pocket for so long, the TG5 has gotten a little scratched up on the lens. So I got the TG6 for portraiture here in my little office thing. And then I also just I've been using an Olympus or a Canon SX70 super zoom camera for a couple of years. I've never been particularly happy with it because it's soft. The edges are kind of smudgy in low light, and as you know, living in Pacific County, around here we got low light a lot. So I just recently, thanks to Uncle Joe and the stimulus check, I just bought myself a Sony RX10 Mark IV camera, but I just got it yesterday, and it hasn't been out in the field yet.
So your skill in photography, it sounds like, is certainly predates the 10,000, the search in 10,000 here.
No, and really, Kelly, I have no skill in photography. I mean, I got good cameras.
Well, I tell you, the quality of the composition and the quality of the color saturation and so forth are very enviable for those of us, who try hard, right, to do interesting nature photographies, especially in that low light conditions that that we're also familiar with. Yeah. Now, once you take an image, right, I mean, identification is something you're very thoughtful about in your narratives. I mean, so how is that? Is there a technique to to how your taxonomy and your keying of these samples?
it kind of depends on the species and how many resources I have. But I've got, you can probably see, I got a library back here of various identification books. There's a bunch more of them over there. Uh, I'm, I just, I try to picture key things to some extent so that I know I can get into at least a family to start with, and then from there if I have an idea, I start out there. If it works out, then that's good. If it doesn't seem to work out, then I go further back and start over again and come through. I still spend a lot of time, especially when it comes to some of the things I'm not that familiar with. I spend a lot of time with my glossaries and finding out just what exactly do they mean by this little piece here or that little piece there. But I got glossaries for mosses and lichens, and I got a lot of different little books, and I just kind of go through with that. With the mosses and lichens, picture keying doesn't work very well, even when I can find them online. They pretty much all have to be keyed. Lichens in particular need to be, excuse me, you have to, a lot of times you have to do chemical reagent tests on them because the morphological characters intergrade so much that you need to actually test for the chemistry and see whether it's K positive, K negative, P positive, P negative, so on and so forth. So
Now, just following up on that, because this is, of course, it's a bane of any master gardeners, when we're in a plant clinic, right? When, a client comes up and asks us, hey, what is this plant? Please help me identify this. And of course, they're bringing you a little twig or a leaf or something, that something is way out of the environment. I'm curious about best practices that you have encountered in terms of collecting specimens and or making notes or photographs of surrounding conditions, so as to help in the keying exercise.
yeah, knowing the habitat where you found it is always really important. I don't take a whole lot of notes except for habitat and stuff because I rely on my pictures, and a lot of times I bring specimens home. I'll bring a little chunk of it home because so back when I was just a recreational naturalist and I was posting on Facebook, it was okay if I said, I think that this is, Loberia pulmonaria, for example. But now that I'm doing profiles of it and I'm saying this is Loberia pulmonaria, I have to get it underneath the scope almost always. I can't trust myself in the field to be able to say that that's what it is. Sometimes I'm right, but I still have to prove it to myself. So almost everything involves some sort of microscope work when it comes to the cryptogams, anything that produces spores.
Now, obviously, those of us who are reading your blog and following you, right, are just in awe of the photographs and eager to learn. I'm really just curious at a very personal level. Now that you're into this, right? What joy are you deriving? What excitement are you taking away from this very diligent detail work here?
Oh, well, it's always fun to find something that I haven't seen before, or something that I might have seen before but never knew what it was, and now I'm going to actually take the time. So that's always really cool. It's really satisfying when I manage to get a tricky ID and then I send it off to one of my experts and they agree with me, which doesn't happen nearly as often as I would like, but it happens a fair amount. That's really satisfying though when I can go through the whole thing and figure it out. I have no background in this at all. I didn't go to I went to college for community college for 3 months one time, but I was working full time and raising a family. And after 3 months, I gave it up. I've never taken a college biology course or any entomology or any botany or anything. It's all self-taught. So when I can manage to figure it out, it's really satisfying to me. Finding the stuff is the biggest thing though. I mean, I love being out in the woods. If I had my choice, I would do nothing but be out in the woods and look for cool stuff. That's my favorite part of the whole thing. I don't do it as much as I would like now that I spend a lot of the time, reading and researching and stuff. But I can do some of that when I'm at work, but not much, and in the evenings. And then every weekend I try to get out to some period of time. I've got a couple of trips planned for this weekend. there's a cliff up by Lake Merwin that isn't even special in any particular way, but the diversity on this cliff is just amazing. And now we're breaking out of the wintertime stuff, which is mostly mosses and lichens, and getting into spring where there should be some wildflowers blooming up there. I saw some cardamine up there last week that was just starting to come through, and I'm not 100% sure what it is yet. And so I'm going to go up there tomorrow and spend some time. I think I'm going to set up lights up there tomorrow night and see what kind of moths are flying in that area right now too.
Well, you know, I wanted to bring the bridge to that because I noticed your most recent post, you know, is speaking to some of the moths and butterflies that are just now coming out. And of course, just some phenomenal photographs of those. Do you get yourself into a theme here? I mean, for example, having moved from lichens, now are you going to be moving to more insects now that we're getting into the summertime or springtime?
It's seasonal. I'm trying to be topical about things so that hopefully somebody can say, oh, so that's what I saw last week, or the next time they're out, oh, that's what he was talking about in that post here a while ago. And it's probably going to be pretty wildflower and moth heavy for a while now, because those are the two things that I'm most interested in. Lichens and mosses, the reason I got into them in the first place is because in the wintertime, there aren't wildflowers and there really aren't bugs to speak of. And I still like to be out in the woods. So I started getting into the lichens and the mosses and snails and slugs to some extent and things like that. But it'll probably be pretty bug and wildflower heavy for a while now. And birds, now that I've got a camera that'll take photographs in low light, next winter, I'm going to spend a lot of time trying to get photographs of birds and stuff.
So when you think about 10,000 things, these are truly are just things. They don't necessarily have to be living things, right? So you could work into geology.
No, I'm not gonna mess with any geology stuff. This is just the flora and fauna of our region. Flora and fauna and fungi really. I mean, get down to it.
All right, there's some general reactions I have in terms of looking at the breadth of photos and the breadth of discussion you have already, is how much we probably as just casual observers don't observe, right, when we were walking through the woods or even walking through the garden. Is there a lesson there in terms of just if we would just slow down and take a careful look, we would probably find a lot more than we think we're seeing?
That's one of my main hopes in writing this is so that people may slow down and notice a lot of these things, although having said that, I'm kind of, whenever I picture an audience, I picture myself 11 years ago when I first started really getting into this aspect of things, and what I would have really liked to have had as a resource in those days. But yeah, the idea that if we all would just slow down a little bit, we'd be amazed by what we can see. That's a big part of it. A lot of the stuff, especially when you come to the invertebrates and mosses and lichens, you're not going to see them if you're just walking down trails trying to keep your heart rate at X number of beats a minute or anything.
This is clearly one of the things that I realize that most of us, as we transition from younger individuals to older adults, right, is that it's less in terms of scoring ourselves about how many miles per hour or what kind of altitude gain, except, and more in the sense of, hey, what are we, what sort of reflections, what is this experience bringing to us here?
Yeah. A couple of years ago, I had an interesting experience where a buddy and I were hiking down to a set of falls up by Lake of the Woods down in outside of Roseburg there, and he's kind of gimpy, and I was like, I'm gonna get to the falls, and so I trucked on down the trail, and he finally showed up, and then he started talking about all of the these little orchids. Dang, I'm drawing a blank now. Some deer orchids, all these little deer orchids that he was seeing. And I hadn't noticed a single one. And I love those little flowers, and I hadn't noticed a one. But then as I walked slowly back up the trail, there was a couple hundred of them along there. And I had missed every one of them by just like trucking on down the trail.
So we're back with Dan and we're looking at his website. And this is where all of these photographs that we were just discussing and all of the discovery that Dan is involved in, this is where he captures it and pushes it out for the public. Dan, share with us what this site is all about and what you're trying to achieve here.
My main goal in writing all this is for people that are like I was 10 years ago, who are developing an interest in being outside and knowing what they're looking at out there, instead of just being out there and, trying to elevate your heart rate or just, make it to the top of that next hill, but to actually know what you're seeing. And I just want to share my love of what I've found. I mean, in some ways, this recreational naturalist stuff has kind of saved my life. I mean, it's such an all-consuming thing, and such a thing that I don't know, I just have a real passion for getting out there and finding all this stuff. And I want to share what I've learned, and hopefully people will see this and think, oh wow, I'd like to see that. I'll have to be looking close the next time I get out there and see if I can see that moss or that butterfly or that bug, and also to realize how much is hidden by by the night, for one thing. I mean, the moths are amazing creatures, and they're amazingly beautiful creatures, and we never see them because they're all out there in the dark. So I mean, I don't know how much of my moth posts are going to be useful to people and going to find them, unless they want to set up equipment. But if they do happen to see ones around their light, they might be able to identify it, or at least appreciate it a little bit more.
So I see from this mission statement homepage, you have tabs here in terms of how to use this site and where the
Yes.
blogs are. Just to begin though, this is all at 10,000 things of the pnw.com, correct?
Yes, sir. Exactly. Yep. No comma in 10,000. Just or wait, no, I take that back. I think there is a comma. Yes, there is a comma in 10,000 things.
Not in the URL, I think. I think
No,
it's
you're right. There's not. Okay, that was a concession to my tech lady. Yes, this was simpler this way for her. So yes, just 10,000 things of the pnw.com.
so go
And then
there.
that
Yeah.
automatically takes you to this page right here with the mission statement. And then from there, you can go to how to use this site, which basically talks about what ways that you can access the different things. The easiest way is that right over here where my cursor is, there's a search button. You can put in a name of anything in there, and if I've written about it, it'll come up. You can use scientific names, you can use common names. I try to put common names for things if there is an accepted common name. And if there's just like colloquial common names, I put them into the commentary. There's also the select categories part down here, which has got everything is listed taxonomically in there. So if you know that you're, say, looking for a Parmelia, you can click on that one. It'll show you all the Parmelia I have. Or any of the spiders, Rainier for spiders. You can go through the categories, and they're all taxonomically listed.
And then, of course, to subscribe to your blog.
Right. There's a subscribe button down here. You click that, you put in your email. They send you an email to that to confirm. Once you've confirmed that, then they just get sent to your email box whenever I post a new one, and you don't have to wait to see what I put on Facebook. One of the problems with using Facebook is that not everything is applicable to all the groups. So, I mean, somebody that might belong to a moth group and have seen something, but they're not going to get any posts about a moss or a wildflower or something. So the subscribe thing works good for that.
Dan, in the galleries and in terms of some of the other information, if folks are to copy and use some of that in presentations, what sort of credit do you want to have? What sort of attribution, et cetera, do you want to make sure it gets carefully covered here?
If anybody uses it, just say I got this off of Dan Nelson's 10,000 Things website. That's all I want. I don't need any money. I don't need any, anything else. I mean, just say where you got it, and that's good enough for me. I have no interest in making any money off here. If anybody that goes there, you'll notice I'm not selling anything. There's no advertising. This is a nonprofit thing for me because I hate it when I go to other people's websites and I got to wade through all these ads and other extraneous stuff to get to the information I want. And it isn't costing me enough to where I need to make any money off of it. So, although it did cost me a little bit more because I got so caught up in it last summer that I semi-retired last summer, and I'm only working 3 days a week now because I couldn't even begin to keep up with it working 5 days a week. So
It's taking control of your life.
but it's a good thing. I mean, it's a good thing though. It's one of the best things I've ever done for myself is to do this. So then if you're when you've got this column over here, the mission statement, how to use this site, the blogs part of it was going to be a much bigger part of this thing. But I got so caught up in the species profiles that I didn't have time to write blogs. So the personal information of my journey and my identifications and my trips and stuff that was going to go in blogs pretty much just goes in the species profiles now. There's a blog about how I got into mothing and one about a trip to the Ridgeville National Wildlife Refuge. But for the most part, the bulk of the information is in the species profiles, which is here. Right now, I've got 215 species I've profiled. There's a lot of moths, a lot of mosses, a lot of lichens, wildflowers, some birds. I mean, I've been doing salamanders and other amphibians. I'm gonna post a lizard here in a couple days as soon as I get it written up. But I'm trying to, I mean, if I'm going for 10,000, then it's got to be, all the taxa available.
So it's with the 215, that means you have 9,785 to go.
Yep, I'm 2.15% of the way there.
Dan, I want to thank you for this capture here and for the presentation of these marvelous images of this very detailed narrative and of the introduction to your website. I want to thank you on behalf of all naturalists here in the state of Washington and across the Pacific Northwest for this work. This is definitely, it's beautiful work. It's inspirational work. It's beyond, of course, just the raw education and the joy of it, of realizing the richness of the natural habitat that we have around us.
Well, thank you, Kelly. I appreciate you bringing me on. I appreciate the appreciation. I mean, that's all I just want I just want to share with people what I love, and I hope that they will love it in return. And that's the whole purpose of doing all this. So thanks for having me on though, and helping to get out the word. I really do hope that more people can see this so that it, hopefully makes their experience in being outdoors a better one and a more interesting one.